Hey gun geeks, I'm Destinee from FateofDestinee Media. This video is part of a series geared toward newer shooters, focusing on trigger pull. If you're already an advanced marksman, feel free to share this with the newer shooters that you know. How do you pull off the perfect handgun shot? One of many factors that can affect your marksmanship is having a good trigger pull. Here are 3 tips I've compiled from various professional marksmen and markswomen and firearms instructors, including Julie Golub, Ben Steger, and Massad Ayub, to help perfect your trigger pull. Isolate your trigger finger. Of any advice that I've been given to improve trigger pull, this is one recommendation I've heard most often. Sounds a bit tricky, after all. Most people's fingers are generally pretty well attached to their hands. Fortunately, once you start thinking about it, it's actually pretty easy to accomplish. In her book, Shoot, Julie Golub points out that your grip can have a significant effect on your trigger pull. Squeezing a pistol grip like it's about to run away from you has a way of making your hand curl into a fist, including your trigger finger. When your trigger finger pulls inward, it has a tendency to pull the shot off to one side. Leftward for right-handed shooters and rightward for left-handed shooters. Additionally, if you gradually squeeze your grip tighter while preparing to fire, you can pull the shot off to the right or left, depending on, which is your dominant firing hand. If you take a moment to think about separating your finger from the squeeze of your grip, you can help isolate it from these negative effects. This isolation is especially helpful when you're shooting with 2 hands. In this way, you can use the majority of your hand strength to keep your firearm steady, and just let your trigger finger work on just interfacing with that bang switch. You should be able to move your finger freely in and out of the trigger guard with no effect on the position of your aim. In his book, Practical Pistol, Ben Steger summarizes this goal of good trigger pull very succinctly. He says, what matters is breaking the shot without disturbing the sights. Don't pull, compress. Have you ever had someone tell you that you're jerking the trigger? Like I mentioned with isolating your trigger finger, how you manipulate the trigger can also alter your aim, generally from side to side. Jerking or slapping the trigger generally means you've tried to pull the trigger somewhat too quickly or forcefully. Milking the trigger is another phrase for putting too much force into your trigger pull, which will have the same effect. In doing this, you'll kind of yank your aim a bit downward and in the direction of your pull. For right-handed shooters, that results in rounds that land low and left of center, and then vice versa for lefties. To correct this, Massad Ayub thinks of rolling the trigger to generate that smooth, straight pull. Along the same idea, I like to think of my finger and the trigger actioning like a piston in an engine. Pull it straight backward with as little side-to-side finger movement as possible, which is easier to do once your trigger finger is isolated. This precise machine-like trigger pull fits in well with the next technique, smooth squeeze. Once your shot is lined up, your trigger finger is isolated, you're ready to begin that perfect pull. Keep it smooth. Massad Ayub recommends reciting a mantra in your head while you pull, kind of like slow or squeeze. That's the one I use. When using this method to execute a precise shot, I focus on keeping my grip steady, my front sight lined up on my target, and smoothly working the trigger back while thinking squeeze. When the gun actually fires, it's almost a surprise. With these 3 techniques aren't the only elements of trigger pull that you can develop. It's only a starting point to help a new shooter get to work on the basics. These advices are more geared toward static range or dry fire practice to help develop the skills that, once mastered, can improve marksmanship in whatever situation the shooter may need. Whether that's dispatching a couple of aluminum cans in the field out back, bringing home a more impressive paper bullseye to stick on the fridge, getting more comfortable with firing a chosen concealed carry pistol, or eking out a few extra points at your next competition match. When was the last time you brushed up on your trigger skills?